How we doing out there? You are in Color Commentary, colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. I'm your host, Marcus Lloyd, in the house, and with me, as always, Mr. Antwuan Malone. What's up, Antwuan?
What is up? What is up? I see you. You stumbled your way not quite stumbled.
I did.
You recovered right there in that opening a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I've got a little bit of the sniffles,
little something,
little sniffles, and
Okay.
But I say that, but I think I stumbled the last time we did this.
Did you?
Well.
I know.
I did. So maybe we just aren't doing enough episodes. That it's just kind of jumping out of my head.
You say, what do we say again?
I got to do this a little bit better.
Christianity,
culture, and race. That's right.
That's what we do.
And look, we're at the top of 2026. Welcome
to
the new year.
To a new year, to a new hotness.
A new hotness. So, are we anticipating that 2026 is a new hotness? Is that?
I don't know. I remember a few years ago we had prediction. Like we're like, man, I feel like this year. I don't remember what year it was.
Okay.
They all kind of run together, but we're like, man, this is gonna be a calm year. But then this next year, let's prepare for this year because this is gonna be the hot year.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what to expect out of 2026 exactly.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to make predictions anymore because they all just get blown out every time, like immediately.
Immediately, you know what I mean? So much is not what it's supposed to be, or just surprising. Surprising altogether.
Yeah, and less surprising.
I don't know. Or is it does that mean we're adjusting?
We're adjusting to the chaos? I think is what it is.
If it's less surprising,
yeah. I think
if the zebra is no longer black and white, it no longer surprises you. Then
it's no longer black and white. It's white and black. Is what it is. Yeah. So it's just which stripe are you going to be looking at?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of it. Honestly, like you turn on the TV every day, and you just never know. You never know what you're going to get, but when you get it, you're never really surprised by what you get. And I think that's a really bad place to be.
I know.
I think that's a really, I don't want to oversell it like it's a scary place to be, but it can become so numbing, right? That then you don't, which I think is part of the strategy.
That's the way it's been talked about. And it's taken, it's been years. It's not like a sudden thing. And we're resisting that new normal,
right?
And that's what and rightfully, like, hopefully this isn't some of what's going on isn't the new normal. Hopefully it's just a phase. Some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I was actually at a lunch with a friend, and we were talking about this. And one of the things they mentioned is, given their age, like I've seen things in cycles.
Yeah.
I said things 20 years ago. That made sense 20 years ago, and then over the last 20 years they hadn't made sense, but now they're making sense again, right? Because it just cycles through. And so I wonder if that's kind of what it is we're in a cycle and we're in the midst of the in-between of some of the things that maybe have been said and engaged with.
Maybe that's it.
But there's also a part of me that's like what I want to do too. And I talked to the team about this morning. I think, we had our first sort of team meeting of the year. I know you rolled in just a little bit late because you come from retreat, but at the beginning it was kind of like, hey, how's everybody's year going so far? Right. And it's like, it's a hot mess. It's the worst. You know what I mean? It's like, immediately I was like, okay, yes. Like I want to honor like that energy of like the discontent, right? Like, because that's a healthy place to be. Like we want to make sure we recognize like the fact that we're not numb to the stuff, but we still are fired up and impacted. I think that's really helpful. And yet, like, there's also a part of me that's like, when you're in the church space, you hear these things all the time, and it feels so trite to say God is still on the throne. Like it feels like that's just what people are saying these days. But I just think about like the 2025. Most people are like, that was crazy. That was a raucous year for me. It was like a dumpster fire, that kind of stuff. Right. And I think I said this last time, like, when you sit down and you actually take stock and you go, yes, but what? Yes. And it was a hard year, but what good happened in it? Right. It's the same thing like we do with our kids after a summer, you know what I mean? And they get about to go to school and we're like, how's the summer? It was this and that. Like, well, let's just take stock of the summer. Yeah. Right. And let's talk about all the things that we did and what happened and what we accomplished and that kind of stuff. And we found out, hey, it actually was a pretty good summer. Right. And still I'm tired. You know what I mean? So I wonder if 2025 was like that. And can we start 2026 with that kind of mentality almost on a daily or weekly basis where like we sit back and we go, yes, this week was crazy. Absolutely. Here are all the things that I'm struggling with. but where are the places we can celebrate? It's a part of the framework we have in our resilience roundtables curriculum that we have. If you ever interested in that, you can check it out Amazon. But we talk about a framework of there is this sort of contention where you're frustrated, but then you can't stay in this sort of discontent, right? You got to move differently. So we talk about a framework of moving towards curiosity, and then moving towards compassion, and then moving towards celebration. So I just practiced before you got to the meeting. We talked about celebrating. Like, what can we celebrate of 2026 thus far?
They were like, that is over.
Yes. No, that was 25. Right? I'm talking 26. We're only like 9 days
celebrating
in.
into the
Yeah, we're like we're like, hey, we're at 9 days into 2026.
Okay.
And already it was like, this is terrible. Like, wait, well, what can we celebrate in the first 9 days of 26?
We made it.
You know what I mean?
That's funny. Yeah, on our team at the retreat, one of the things we talked about at the retreat was we had a discussion time, and one of it was around the right frustrations, and we were talking about frustrations and difficulties and dissatisfaction, and how sometimes frustration and dissatisfaction gets a bad rap. Where sometimes you should have the frustrations that you have. The problem is when you have the wrong frustrations and you celebrate the wrong successes.
Yeah,
and so So you want to, if some of the frustrations we should hold, they're drivers. They're what produce change. They're the things that bring about justice, because to be overly satisfied is to stand still sometimes. And that frustration, that energy moves us and shakes us. So we were kind of like, what are the frustrations that we have?
Yeah.
And are they the right ones? Are these the right frustrations? Am I frustrated about the right thing? And am I trying to achieve the right thing? So that's another little tidbit maybe at this moment to think about as you're doing both of those things, celebrating and wrestling with those frustrations.
Yeah, and yet, right? Like, even as we try to keep this framework of celebration, we still are getting hit with things in our environment and our society that causes us great turmoil. Frustration, as you've already mentioned, and a lot of great sadness too. We're recording this on a day where in the last probably 24, 30, 48 hours or so, we've seen some shooting by federal officials, whether it be ICE or federal agents of immigrants, and one in Minnesota and one in Portland. And the Portland one, I think we just kind of, a lot of folks are kind of,
it's a lot of energy there.
A lot of energy around that. A young lady, 37-year-old woman, mother of 3, I think, was in her car and seemingly trying to impede or in the way of ICE officers coming into an area, I think presumably to do some kind of raid. And as the ICE officers approached her car, they were trying to get her to move. So I don't know, we don't have a lot of the volume of what's going on, what's being said there, right? That's where the investigation is going to have to take its toll in the midst of it. And it appears that one of the ICE agents tried to open her door and then she backed up, and then another ICE agent got in front of the car to some extent to try to stop, and she pulled forward. And as she was pulling forward, he shot into the front window a couple of times, I think 3 shots, whatever, and ended up killing this woman. And of course that set the media on fire, right? In both directions, right? We have those on one side going, hey, this is a murder. This is unnecessary. This isn't what, this is a terrible thing. It's, I think terrible is probably, the terrible thing is across the board, right? But definitely people who are saying these ICE agents didn't do the right thing. And then you have folks on the other side, particularly in the ICE area and even up in the administration saying, no, this is an ICE agent protecting himself, and he did the right thing for his protection. So we're right in the middle of it, right? We're a couple of days in. Immigration ICE has been a huge issue and a huge discussion for the country. And I would say even, I would like to believe the church, at least in the spaces we play in, I hear the church talking about it, but I know a lot of churches aren't. But here we are in the midst of another space.
Yeah, like what does it mean for the church? Like, what does it mean for your church engagement? You know, what does it mean for all the ways that you engage with church, not just Sunday morning, but if you're in small groups, your small groups. If you're in other spaces, I think what's interesting too is like I think it can be easy if I'm in a position of leadership in the midst of the church
to see something like this and kind of have the attitude of, look, I can't talk about everything, right? Because everything is constantly doing stuff. And so you may say, like on a Sunday morning, like, hey, this isn't, we're not going to talk about this, right? Because if we did that, then we're setting precedent to talk about everything. And I understand that. I think strategically, organizationally, the issue, right, is that just because you're not talking about it at church doesn't mean the people in your church are not talking about it.
100%.
Right. And just because you believe that it's a little scary or inconvenient, or it's a slippery slope to bring these issues to the forefront of your church's sermon, or in some capacity engaging your church, because it will, it'll scream of like it'll scream of a kind of wokeism, or, fearfulness of dealing with race and politics too much. That is a decision of discipleship or lack of discipleship that does not mean your people will not be discipled in another way.
Right.
They're getting discipled, and it's usually going to be by people in social media who have the loudest voices. And in the apps, and with that, the absence of the church voice is a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation's being had whether you like it or not, and it's protective of you, for you to, if you're a leader, a lot of times it'd be like, hey, all right, we're gonna dance around that, and it protects you, and sometimes feels like it protects the organization at large. But there is an opportunity. There's a couple ways I think to look at moments like this, right? You could look at it in Sunday morning, and in the way that you just described it beautifully. And then there's like leadership development. There's, what does it look like to lead your leaders well? And I'm starting to wonder, as we're thinking through it, like, what does it look like to, let's just say, small group? Like, a lot of churches have small group ministry mechanisms.
Yeah.
And what happens in small groups is these conversations, the raw material of these conversations may show up in a small group setting. And who's providing the oversight over that setting? A small group leader. Yeah. And how trained is that small group leader to deal with the things?
Not trained at all.
Not very well. Yeah. And so what happens as a result? Hurt and pain and difficulty, and for lack of, not for lack of want to or lack of character, but potential mismanagement of conversation that leads to division, leads to long-lasting church hurt and dissension. And so as a leader, if your body is likely talking about things in spaces, it's an interesting challenge to say, how do we equip and respond, and in what way can we create a mechanism where when things happen, we don't actually need Sunday morning is not actually going to be the place where you're going to best prepare the small group leader to deal with the conversation that walked into their living room.
Yeah,
it's going to be some other places where development is happening, and where oversight is happening, and training is happening, and you're walking alongside your leaders. And that the reason we want to bring things like this up and say, hey, it's worth talking about, is, like you said, because it's being talked about, and it's being talked about in spaces. Most pastors, hopefully, can deal with some of this, we hope, with some of this difficulty of the conversation. But a lot of people, they're not quite sure what to do with it, right? They like this person, they don't know what to do there. And there's an opportunity missed in the discipleship growth, in the development of the group and the person, and even in ability to bring scripture to the situation sometimes in a way that is really meaningful and practical, and doesn't sound like Christian Hallmark card, fill in the blank, go find a trite verse and fill it in kind of deal. Yeah. Which when you get these high urgency, high emotionally response moments, like potentially could be for small groups, like the trite stuff just falls on dead ears, because this is way more real than what you just said.
It's really helpful, I think, for what you just said, kind of thinking outside the proverbial sermon box or Sunday box. And this is where I think maybe the move of modern church right now, where we literally, we circle everything around that hour and 15 on a Sunday, is continually demonstrating itself as problematic. Because you and I grew up in the spot where we had that drug problem, right? We were drugged to church.
Oh yeah.
Day, it got Sunday nights, Monday, children's choir, youth group, prayer service, all the things, right? Saturday vigils, all that stuff. So you were always at the church, and you had multiple times in which I would even say the senior pastor at least preached 3 times a week, right? So multiple times for the pastor to be kind of communicating something. And then you had small groups, Sunday schools, that kind of stuff where there's more discipleship happening. So we're talking about discipleship, a lack of disciplship, or a lack of
it's really meaningful discipleship with teeth, if you will.
Yeah, but
Right.
I don't want to call it a program as much as a strategy and a process in which you are constantly being able to speak into people's lives to disciple them around the things that are going on in their lives, right? It's why when we work with churches, like when we consult with churches and they're trying to, become a more multi-ethnic, more multicultural church, or they're trying to engage the diversity of the community, they call us in. One of the first things that we try to do with that organization is to help not only get the leadership on the same page, right? Because they all have to go. Do we even want to, talk about these things in our church, right? Whether it be the justice issues, immigration issues, diversity issues, racial issues. If we want to talk about that, foundationally, what should we be talking about? But one of the first things we do is go, hey, you need to build in a team of people who are going to be driving this work and this discipleship in your church. Led by your vision, right? But functioning out of a really clearly understood strategy of what it looks like. And a lot of those groups, they will create a kind of monthly rhythm with people to kind of engage this conversation where they do book studies, they watch videos, they plan things to do around cultural and racial issues. And what I've found is when you have that kind of consistent rhythm of this meeting that's in the space of this justice and outreach space, then when these things happen like this, you don't feel like Sunday's the only place to talk about it, because that weekly rhythm is a place where they can talk about that. And anybody who wants to engage in that more can go deeper in from a very biblical perspective. And on Sunday, all you have to do is pray for what's going on and then tell people, hey, we know this thing happened and we believe and we see that as a church. That's why we have this monthly rhythm or this weekly rhythm or this monthly rhythm of this thing coming up where we can talk more about that. And that's why things like, again, I feel like a broken record talking about this, resilience roundtables. Like that's kind of a place where people are practicing spiritual disciplines, right? And so if you're going through this, have these roundtables of people that are constantly practicing these spiritual disciplines of being able to bring their hurts and pains, but thinking about curiosity, and then they're thinking about compassion, they're thinking about celebration, and these things become a natural place for that to come up.
And not just that, just a place to process in general. A place to go ahead and bring that frustration and let it breathe a little bit, to find other people who may be co-frustrated with you and can provide additional perspective. So those sort of things are there. But as we continue to get, we've had years, obviously we've had decades of this, but we certainly had, at least since 2020, things like this over and over again. So we're 6 years since. Let's just use 2020. Let's just use 2020, right? That does feel like a long time. Short time, but
it feels like 2020 feels like yesterday.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It feels like it's 6 years ago. But let's just say since 2020. Everybody knows 2020 was a crazy year for a lot of reasons. But the church were really challenged that year, and I don't know that we've moved. Again, speaking like from a leadership point of view, I don't know that we've reevaluated our structures in such a way that we can be responsive to moments like this at the individual level. Right. Like not at the organizational level again, which is sort of sermon and Sunday and one person speak to the whole room, but at the organizational level. I keep thinking about the Sunday mornings are like the locker room. I think we talked about this one time in the thing.
Locker room stuff in this day and age.
It's like that. It's like the halftime. It's like the halftime or the pep rally, right? It's the pregame. It's the mid game, like all the teams together. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. It's not the actual game. Like it is a little bit, but walk with the analogy. It's in the locker room. We're all together. Everybody's on the same team. We're together. We're in one mind. We're laying out the plan. Like this is what we're gonna do. But then when you get out on the field, there's using football, for instance, there's an offense and there's a difference. There's two different teams and they got coaches and they have, and then you got the quarterback coaches, you got the running back coaches, and you have these. It's football here. I know we lost most of the. Can I say we lost the ladies? Is it?
No, you can't say it. My wife loves some football. So
my gosh, I know. So I can't say. Apologies, canceled. Just ignore everything else I'm gonna say. No. But the point is in that idea that when you're executing at a high level, to get everyone moving in the same direction, you have these little small pockets. You have the highest level of leadership where everyone's together, and then you're implementing and doing. And I don't know that the church has done a good job, the organizational church. And I'm not sure I'm bought in fully on leaving the church, the organizational church, and running to the house church model, because I don't think the house church model handles growth well.
Okay.
And we can talk all about that later.
Yeah,
so they have a
whole nother
they have a growth that you have to deal with the fact that you're going to be missional, and it's going to get bigger, and that bigger demands organization. And then when you do that,
nobody's talking about house churches.
You start to sound like organizational churches. No, I'm just talking about organization. But then you get to them. So I'm not necessarily ready to run to that, but I am interested though in how can we structure or imagine doing church. We said all the time, make a big church feel small. And this, and we talk about that from a structural, strategic point of view. Moments like this challenge that structure. And hopefully what it does, it doesn't make you feel like, man, we just can't do anything. I think hopefully we say, man, the fundamental thing that we want to do is help every person at every level. And I did a little research a few years back on church hurt, and I did an interview, close to 70 interviews with people who are giving me their stories. 45-minute interview for each one of these, where I'm talking through and giving them not a short interview. And in these interviews, I would say close to 45% of church hurt that has happened in the context of small groups. And I don't think it's because the small group leaders were just like ridiculously, people with low character. It's because big things show up in small group.
Okay.
Big conversations like this show up in small groups or in different ministry spaces, and we just haven't prepared those. So I think this is going to show up in some small groups, and someone's going to come in. They're going to come in hot. They're going to be like, "Man, that lady shouldn't have tried to run him over," or whatever. And
you got to deal with it.
We may not be best prepared for that, and I want us to be. I want us to be imaginative and be creative, and to think in that direction for that discipleship.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. It reminds me of, actually probably about 3 years before 2020, I was at a church, and the pastor, I kind of got this mode in his brain at one point. He was like, what if and he said it was very prophetic. He said, what if in 3 years we're not able to do church the same way? Are our people able to carry on without this church, without churches existing? What if they had to go to a kind of house church model? What if that was the force? Would we have enough leaders to be able to move the church effectively, theologically, all across? And we were all like, no. And so the question was, well, what do we need to do to get our church ready for that?
Get there.
Right? And we didn't do it, just to be clear. So we got to 2020 and we were not ready.
As most churches
wouldn't, right? And look, we were out there studying. We were like, hey, look, in a couple of years, like every 4 years, you gotta be ready for something to happen.
Another
these elections, these things happen. So this is a great opportunity, I think, in these moments, right? Every time we kind of look at starting a new year or something, the church always has to be in this mode of like, how do we prepare ourselves as to multiply in such a way that people can guide themselves as groups, if you will, or learn or be able
or
to
ministry areas,
or whatever it is,
whatever your pockets are.
That they feel trained enough to handle not just the evaluation and the exegesis, if you will, of the scriptures, but really not exegeting the scripture in the context of the world that they're in right now. Right? How are they able to see what happens out on the news in the world, come back to the scriptures to be able to say something in connection to that and understand it, right? Right. To be able to look at this scenario that we just are seeing with this woman who got shot, and whatever side of the aisle you're on, if you can, as a Christian, be able to point to the fact that this woman is made in the image of God, then we're already starting from a place that's really difficult, right? Because that should inspire all of us to go, this is a really sad thing. If you can't look at it and see that this woman has passed, that is perished, right, and left 3 kids without a mother, right? Like that's like, if you can't see that, you know what I mean, then we're not starting from a place that I think where this image of God mode in which the scriptures try to help us understand, and to be able to start to think about like the effect that seeing something like that by those who are in positions of power, who many feel are there to, protect. I mean, these aren't the police. It's not protect and serve. These are here trying to enforce policies around immigration. And even children who are immigrant children having to grow up now in a society where the title of immigrant, which describes who they are, is seen in such negative ways. Like, what does that do to their psyche? It makes me think, like, I don't know when we're going to release this podcast, but it's got to be close to Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And there's a lot of things that we think about with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And, there's lots of things to say, lots of great quotes and things of that nature in the midst of even this immigration conversation. I can't help but to think about it in terms of our own people's story, right? And the ways that we have to kind of think about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember a story Dr. King was talking about sitting on his mom's lap at one point, and she said this thing to him that every African American hears and doesn't really fully understand. They need to hear it until injustice shows up. And what she said to him is, "You are somebody, right? Like, you are not what people think you are. You are greater than what people think you are." And you're like, why would you ever need to say that to any? Like, she believed she needed to say that because she knew what was coming in his life would tell him the opposite. And if you're a child, an immigrant child right now living in America, and you're seeing all that's happening on TV, and you're hearing all the hubbub around your status, if you will, it can be very easy for you to believe yourself to be inferior. But Dr. King is telling us and reminding us that just, it's not the status that determines your value, but you are valuable because God made you. Yeah. That's something we need to constantly remember, not only for ourselves, particularly those who are marginalized groups, but for those who are in power. Like, everybody you come up against is somebody that made in the image of God, and they deserve that respect.
Yeah. We're so used to just evaluating based on ourselves. Like what you just described is a God-based, God-centered.
Yeah.
The value is determined by the image of God, by God's they're created by God. Jesus died for them. Those are all things. Evaluations come from God, but we're so used to like valuing people based on us, and so we look at this scenario and we say, which one of these these entities is most like me?
Yeah.
And
same as me bias.
Yes. I'm Team Ice, so I'm going to just side with Team Ice.
Yeah,
or I'm Team
no matter what.
This, so I'm just going to side. Or I always think it's interesting. Like, we need all the descriptors, like this is a mother, or this is because we need that. Because if we didn't, it's not enough just to say a woman was killed today. That wouldn't produce in us empathy. We need to say a mother, because that helps us feel like, I have or she has kids. I have.
Yeah.
So we automatically communicate in our descriptors that, hey, here's why you should care, right? But the Christian view is that none of those things actually determine
the value,
the actual value. Like, it shouldn't matter what the story really is. It helps us to know those things. But as far as the evaluation goes, we're so used to finding ourselves and the human systems way of creating valuation, and it just frustrates our ability to love well in these moments, to see people the way God truly sees them, and to love them accordingly, and to, if you're a believer, lean into the spiritual superpower that you have to love people indiscriminately, as opposed to leaning into your very natural fleshly instincts to gravitate to the things that are just like me.
So I wonder, just doing a thought experiment on that too, right? Like, it's so easy, for, let's say, us, right? As we talk about it, we're like, it's a mother, I have a mother, I mean, kids, I got kids. But what if you flipped it on it's flipped it around, right? So, like, Resilience Roundtable, one of the things we're thinking of is, we can come in with the contentious, but it's also like the curiosity, the compassion, right? So let's just talk about it from the ICE agent, right? Like, again, 100%. Like, from his perspective, as he would talk about it, right? And what we hear is, like, he thought his life was in danger, right? He thought he was going to get run over by this car, and he shoots and he kills somebody. Right now, despite whether he thinks he's self-justified in that, or he thinks he likes that he did that, like, something broke in him when he did that, right? Something spiritual and inside him to take a life like that, right? It does something to you. It's the old thing. It's like, in the midst of oppression, not only those who get oppressed are the ones who are receiving damage, but the oppressor does too, right? Because it does something to your soul and how you engage with the Almighty. Right. And particularly if there's an unrepentantness to it, right? If it's this is a desire. And I would imagine anybody who's in law enforcement who carries a gun, if you carry a gun, like the idea is at some point you're going to have to use this, but most likely. And if you do, and you take a life, like you kind of, you got to carry that,
Yeah.
which is why, you know, I many people have seen, I've been appointed to the Chief of Police Advisory Board. And so we're constantly now with police officers and having to think about those things. And one of the things we get reported on is kind of the psychological framework of how police are doing in our city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of really intentionality of bringing in a lot of psychiatric help for law enforcement that wasn't there before. And it becomes, if you hate the police, you're like, good, they need to suffer. Like, but it's like, again, it's the idea of like, but these are also people made in the image of God, right? Who are doing something you may agree or not agree with, but there is damage. I mean, I was on a ride along with a police officer the other day, and he was talking about he's on his second marriage, right? And he was talking about it like, well, you know, I'm a police officer, so I'm on my second marriage. And he even said it like I can't remember how he said it, but he's like, I'm on my second wife, you know, almost like I've got another one coming, or maybe my first next. He said it in such a way that this may not be his last. And that's kind of how it works. And when you talk to police officers, they're like, yeah, that's just kind of how it works. That's not good. Just in case anybody's listening, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not to be like praised. That's not to be like put out there like, hey, that's awesome that we have our police officers that marriages are constantly breaking up and families are breaking up. That's not good. So there is something on the other side of that. Like, how do you find, you know, the curiosity of, I'm curious, like, what is it about the training that says that shooting through the window as you're getting hit by a car is the methodology? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. And I want to have compassion for the fear. But man, it just, I'm trying to see it in that way. But it's hard, but you're right. Like, I think we have to do those thought exercises where you kind of see it on opposite sides to really,
to allow yourself that you are really, again, the question, you know, one of the things that we did do in the retreat I was just at, was the young man gave me, we had a new hire on our team, and we did devotional each morning, and he opened us up. And one of the things he said in his devotional that I thought was really interesting. We were going back and thinking back to trauma and moments in our lives. And he asked a question like, okay, I want you to go back to that traumatic moment in your life, and I want you to imagine what Jesus is doing in the room. Like, he's in the room, and what is he doing there?
Yeah.
And what is he seeing? And what is he, and really it was a prayerful exercise to say, what is Jesus doing as he's sitting there? And you go to ICE, right? You go to this scenario that we're talking about right now, and you imagine Jesus is sitting right there. You know, we got the cameras. Jesus is right there. He's present. And what is he doing? And how does he feeling about everybody that's involved? What does he feel about the ICE agent? What does he feel about the woman who was shot and the woman that was with her and the kid? And what does he feel about the scenario? And what is he doing? And in what way can that inform how we ought to respond? And I thought that was a really interesting way to think through our own story, right? Go back to those traumas, those trauma moments in our lives, those key moments that we probably can pull up very quickly and say, man, Jesus was in the room next to me when that was happening. And what was he feeling? And it also is an interesting exercise to do for these moments. Yeah. Say, what do you think Jesus was feeling? What do you think he's doing? Was he acting? Or maybe you don't presume. Maybe you prayerfully ask, God, what are you doing? And looking to see it, not to confirm an idea, you know, not to, hey, I believe you were doing this, but to be truly, if you will, curious to discover what Jesus is doing and how he would want us then to truly respond to it, and be open to the fact that it may not be the thing that we actually want to do.
Yeah, and that, you know, what's hard about it, I think you hit on something that's really kind of deep in the psyche of people when they see tragedy like this, or when they think about their own sort of trauma in the space, is I think they instinctively wonder, like, Jesus was in the room and didn't do what I thought he needed to do.
Why didn't he intervene? Why didn't he change?
Yeah. Right. And so much of that, so much of the frustration or the response we have to trauma, I think, is sometimes it's about the other person, right? I mean, it is for sure. Sometimes about us, sometimes about the other person's scenario, whatever. But I think what's deep, like, is that you have to deal with what was God doing in that moment, like something really deep there, right? Like you got to grieve that whatever you thought God was going to do at that moment didn't happen, and you have to try to, and then you're stuck with this: do I still believe God is good?
Yeah, it's always where it goes.
It's always where it goes,
or loving or competent.
That's right. And if you still believe God is good, then you have to believe that God didn't intervene, right? Because in many ways, he's just not going to mess with free will, but that he has your good laid out for you despite what happened, right? And so that is that's a really tough space. And that's what makes, I think, it's like, think about the situation with this woman getting shot in the car, right? And coming to the church with that.
Right.
Like people are struggling with, why is God allowing all of this stuff, right? And the church needs to bring an answer to that,
right?
You know what I mean? Because it's not just, why is ICE doing this and why did that? Right. It's like when people are coming to a church and they're seeing these things out there, they're wrestling with that internally somewhere, and somebody's got to give them a way to think about it, or at least a place to process it in the midst of a really theological framework.
Yeah, that leads to trusting God. The sort of we gave a sermon this past the last sermon was the last Sunday of the year, and we're talking about fear, and we're talking about the sort of fear that feels like we have to protect ourselves from God. And to that, Moses says in Exodus, he says, "Fear not," to the room. But then he says, "Well, God is bringing this to you for fear." And we talk about, well, wow, you got fear right next to each other. One is fear not; we have to protect ourselves from God. But the other is we have the healthy version of fear that leads to this trust in God, right? And it's the trust in God that is born out of what you just said. The trust of God that says, I believe God is good. I believe God is competent or powerful. I believe God is loving.
Yeah.
And if those things are true, and he can never not be those things, then whatever it is he's doing is ultimately good, loving, and he's not being restrained. And that means that I have to trust what I'm looking at, even when it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And to be able to help people process that, again, is something that the conversations like this aren't always just about justice. It does challenge our faith.
Yeah.
It challenges our understanding of who God is. Yeah. It wrestles with whether Christianity is real or not.
Yeah.
Are we doing something that actually matters or not?
Yeah.
Right. What is the thing? Like those are the things that can come out of these conversations. It's not always just political, which is why it's important. And they're not going to happen in the sermon room. They're going to happen in the smaller groups or the smaller spaces,
or the
mentorship conversations,
sure, or the front porch with your buddy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like those kind of things. Yeah. And I think that's such a good thing to just recognize. Like, I think that's such a good thing. I would imagine for churchgoers, but leaders of churches and ministries to hear too, right? Like, these issues that we're talking about, these things that happen in our society, are not solely political or social, but there are theological implications that people are going to wrestle with, even if they don't know they're wrestling with them.
Yeah, right? It's spiritual warfare, but not against America. It's against the kingdom of God.
That's right. But I'm saying, like, every human is going to, whether they go to church or not, they're going to wrestle with, if you keep saying that there's this God, but these things keep happening.
Yeah.
Every time these things happen, it's an opportunity for the church to speak into, remind people of God, a God who's good. We've got scriptures that demonstrate that regularly, even in the midst of trial. I mean, look, you got the very book that God introduces himself to the world on is Job, right? Like that's literally the oldest book in the canon, right? And it's a book in which God ultimately seems to send some stuff to Job, right? He sends, he allows, Satan says, can I mess with this dude? He's like, yeah. And while he's going through this issue, you're listening to Job constantly like wrestling with, why would God allow this? And then he's got his friends coming. You must have did something, right? Like you need to curse God and you need to do all
their
this.
understanding of who God is not quite on par with what God is actually doing.
That's right. But it's this, as you continue to read through the book, like you keep seeing Job really wrestling and calling out God, and then God shows up. But it speaks to this internal need that we have to do with God to engage. But sometimes you got to have people on the side to help you even understand what he's saying back to you, because God says some stuff to Job that was like, oh my goodness. Okay.
I think we all would probably be in the boat of Job, like if that was happening to us, like but that's what discipleship is, right? It's not just learning the scriptures, it is this wrestling with real life. 2026 may be Think about like the theme, right? And I don't know. I
You
don't
got
have
to make
themes.
up a thing for yourself? Or are you giving us
Just
a theme?
maybe just a theme that I think about throughout the year, but I don't know if this will be what it is or not. But what is starting to come is like I said a little bit earlier, like the realest thing in your life. Like if God and your belief about God isn't the realest thing in your life, then the trials that are surely going to be present will be. And I believe you're going to orient your life around what the realest thing is to you. Like that's what creates real urgency. And if you don't believe, if God is not realer than the trial you're in, then you're going to go to something that is right, something that you believe will deal with, because the trial is real. You have the pain you're feeling is actual. It's not theoretical. You don't need to be convinced about that. The difficulty, the bill that's not being paid, that's due. You know, the sickness that you got, that's here. That's not theoretical. That's real. The question is God as real as those things? Is your belief about God, your framework around God, as real as those things? If it isn't, then that's where the challenge is. And as we continue to have moments like this that are real, the challenge is, man, I don't know that Christianity is real enough to deal with real life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And how do we do that? How do we move people or continue to grow individually in ourselves and with others to a place where, man, who God says he is the realest thing in your life, and that becomes the backdrop around which you shape and think about everything that's going on in your life, even the other things that feel super tangible and present and actual and provable in a way, and just what the relationship of that is.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes into this conversation.
Well, I think it helps. It's going to help us as we continue to see these things happen. You know what I mean? It's going to continue to remind us, right? Like if whether it's you who are the one who's in the midst of the trial, you're watching other people's going through it, or people who are close to you. They may not be as traumatic or as drastic as you getting shot by an ICE agent in your car and things of that nature, right? But we're still wrestling with the images that we're going to see every day and recognizing the sense that we're in the midst of something larger, this bigger trial, which is just this 2026 American experience right now. And I think about it, we've given some things that are really helpful, I think, for, people who are church leaders, people who are church people who are just kind of wrestling with the things going on. I know for us, one of the things we want to do is want to continue to really try to help not only individuals who go to church think about this, but we want to really try to provide some ways for church leaders to know how to maneuver that. I know both of us have been leaders in churches for 20 years, right? You're in it right now. I'm kind of right outside the church these days, right? But working inside a church more contractually, if you will.
Sure.
But still very much dug in and constantly in relationship with leaders. So much so that we created we're creating this monthly gathering now for a diverse network of leaders, right? To kind of really think about unity and justice and, pursue it in cross-cultural ways, right? Like that's kind of what we're thinking about. And so we call it the exchange. And so it happens right now. It's it's like the first Wednesday of the month. It's a Zoom. It's an hour and a half. It's in the afternoon, right there during the lunchtime period. You can find out more about it at wearethreaded.org. But this month actually is coming up in February. We're actually going to be talking specifically about these things around immigration, right? Because I know, like, again, we're talking about this ICE agent that shot a woman, right? And so we have these raids. There's more immigration that's coming. There's more conversation. There's things that connect to that, and so we believe that the church has a place for that, right? So we're trying to bring in some folks that'll help the church really think about this, because I know that there are churches out there that like you said, they're getting these small groups where they're having these conversations and they're going to the pastor and they're saying, "Pastor, what are we going to do about this?" You got people in your church who are going, "We should talk about this," from the church. You got people in the church or from the pulpit, and other people going, "We shouldn't talk about this," right? And so sometimes if you're a pastor or a leader or a ministry leader out there by yourself, you just don't even know how to think about it. So we want to create a place where we can bring other leaders together and learn from each other. They can exchange their own ideas and their thoughts. We're going to bring some thought leaders in to kind of give some information around immigration. We've got our good friend Alice Kay, who's come in here several times, immigration lawyer down in Houston, an old friend of mine, on the board of Threaded as well. She's going to come in. She's going to be a part of that conversation. We're bringing in Alexia Salvatierra, who is also a friend of the show, has been on the show several times as well. Stephen Reeves, if you saw our politics series, I guess it's 2 years ago. Man, it's been 2 years. Wow,
that's crazy.
It's been 2 years. Yeah, Stephen Reeves, he's the leader of FaithWorks. They do a lot of work as far as immigration on the southern border, engaging organizations and churches who are doing things down there. So it's going to be great. So we're going to have some stuff.
These are practitioners. Yeah. This is not theory.
Nope.
These are people for whom this is what they do on a regular basis.
Right.
There's Christian leaders who are wrestling with that as well. This is what they do on a regular basis.
Right.
And if this is what you're doing on a regular basis, and you're like, man, I need a place to process. I need a place to think through, or I need to hear what other people are doing and thinking, or I just need some help getting started on how to think. This is going to be a great space for you, and something you should lock in every first Wednesday, to be a part of, as we continue to provide opportunity for you to engage and to do so in a way that is safe, that doesn't cause you a whole lot of risk. This isn't your staff. Yeah. So you're not coming with ideas to a staff where they're ready to implement something that may not be ready to implement yet. So you don't have to be ready. You have to be baked already. Yeah. Is a place to do some of that and be able to take something back into your staff and further conversation and all of that. So really want to be able to lay out an opportunity for leaders to really want to be a resource, and encouragement, to say, hey, this is not something that is that's too scary to walk into, right?
Look, we got to get more of the church leaders feeling comfortable and feeling confident and equipped in some of these issues that we're going to be seeing every day, so that we can see more churches who are effectively discipling people in this work, so that those who get discipled can be more effective out in their communities as they engage people, and as they engage in social media and the things that they post and the things they talk about. Even the young, like my kids, even when they go to school, like that's part of the convo that we have about it. Like, how do they deal with these things that other friends are hearing from their parents at home? It comes and enters the school at the very young level. That next generation is being taught.
The conversations are having. They're just because you're not having it.
That's right.
Doesn't mean it's not being had.
That's right.
Is happening.
I think that's like that's the through line, right? If we're talking to church leaders, it's like, just because you ain't having it in the church, don't mean the conversations you had is not being had someplace else. And wouldn't it be great if we were in the convo in the midst of it, right? And so what does that look like? And it may mean we got to change up structures. We got to change up how we're doing. We can't just stay doing the same thing. But churches are not built for 2025. They're still built for 1984, right? Like, we're just not in the same structure. Like, something's got to change. And it's not that I'm saying church has got to go away. Like, no, I am a lover of the church, and even organizing people together in a church space, right? Like, I'm good on all of that. It's just, we got to know, like, man, we playing with some old playbooks, right? And you can see it. You can see it in just how divided the church is in their idea of these social issues when they come up.
Yeah,
I mean, you could literally be talking about immigration with two Christians, and one may say that immigration is evil, and the other says that it reminds you that Jesus was an immigrant. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, wait, but you're both Christians, or you say you are. Yeah. So how do we get there? And I think because we're playing with an old playbook. So we're hoping that, as we talk here in Color Commentary, we'll be able to, hopefully, as we have the conversation, maybe give people a little insight on how to think about it. Obviously, we gave a framework today, thinking about it. You're contending, you're curious, you're compassionate, you're celebrating resilience, sort of a framework, but also, bringing in some folks that are going to be helpful. So hopefully, February 4th for the exchange, our first one, again, be able to get some leaders out there.
And what is that? What's that look like? Is that a Zoom call?
It's a Zoom call. It's a Zoom call. So you got to register, right? You got to go to wearetreated.org.
You don't have to be here in the Dallas area to be part of that.
Nope.
You can be anywhere in the country.
And what's fun is, like, we're partnering with Mosaic as well. So Mosaic Global Network, which did the Mosaic Conference, which, if you got been around, you've heard us talk about that. Mark DeMaz is the leader of that group. We're partnering with them to be able to bring in all kinds of folks from all over the country and all kinds of thought leaders in the midst of the conversation. So I'm excited about that partnership and collaboration. It's going to be a year of collaboration and partnership for us. We got a lot of really good collaborations and partners going through. Like, I think we've got we've got this thing happening in February around immigration. We've got some stuff in our outpost in Dallas. They're going to be doing some stuff around immigration in the 26th of February. We're our partners, Let's Talk Race Ministry has created a new Hispanic Let's Talk Race class, and so they've been piloting that. We're going to have some people do that in March.
That's gonna be fun. That's a fun release. I know they've been working on that
a long
time.
It's going to be really good. And then even we're taking some leaders down to the border. In April, just to go do a trip down there with FaithWorks and to do some stuff, and then we're working on a Pentecost service, down in our neighborhood here. So it's gonna be wild fun, and that's just to May. You know what I mean? I'm gonna just leave it at that's what's May.
That's just
the first
the next
5 months.
5 months.
Right. Lots of stuff.
I love it, man.
Yeah, but look, hey, this is Color Commentary, colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. I got it. That's and we're excited that you guys are always here and engaged. We hope this conversation was helpful to be able to kind of wrestle with some of the things that were going on in our society, especially the things that are going on around immigration this time. We just want this to be a place that you hear as an individual, some of the things that might help you in the things going on, but also as a leader, as you come in, we want to be able to resource you and help you know how you can lead your churches and your ministries in ways that are going to be really thinking about this cultural and racial moment in our American society right now. That's why we call it color commentary, so that you can look through different colorful lenses and find different ways to see the world. Removing your own lens as the primary, although you may keep it as a primary. Put some other glasses on and see what's going on, and that's what being colored about color commentary means. And that's why we tell you when you go out into the world that we want you to put on some lenses and stay colored.